All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we are going to get into something that is just so confusing and honestly, really painful. We're talking about the aftermath of a breakup with someone who has an avoidant attachment style. So, this is the big one, right? The question that just drives you crazy. Why do they seem to come back only when you stop chasing them? It feels like a total paradox. You pour your heart out, you try to connect, you show them all the love you have, and they just pull further and further away. But then, the second you stop, the second you create that space, boom, they reappear. So let's figure out what's really going on here. And look, it's not magic. It's not some weird mind game they're playing on purpose most of the time. It really all comes down to psychology. The answer is baked right into the core of how the avoidant attachment style works. And once you understand that, that's when you'll start to get some real clarity. Okay, so to really get this, we have to step inside their mind for a minute. Think of it like this. Their internal world is this constant push and pull. On one hand, they have the same human need for connection that we all do. But on the other hand, there's this really intense, overwhelming fear of dependency, of losing themselves. And those two things are always at war. This slide really hits the nail on the head. It shows the fundamental disconnect. It's like you're speaking two completely different languages. You say, I miss you, I want to be close, and to you, that's just love. But what they hear is, you're smothering me. This is way too much pressure. Your attempt to connect feels like a threat to their independence. And this right here, this is the absolute key. It's called the fear of engulfment. And it's exactly what it sounds like. They have this deep-seated fear that getting too close, that real intimacy, will mean they lose themselves, their control, their independence. So when you push for more closeness, you're not pulling them in. You're actually, without even knowing it, hitting their panic button. And their flight response kicks in. They withdraw to feel safe again. You know, this is such a critical point to understand. For them, space is a need. It's not a punishment. Think about it. When you're hurting, what do you want to do? Probably talk it out, connect, right? Well, they're the complete opposite. They need to go into their cave, be alone, and process things in solitude. So when you give them space, you're not actually pushing them away. You're giving them the very thing they need to breathe. So, what does this all mean? It means all those grand gestures, all the long text explaining how much you love them, they're actually counterproductive. It's crazy, I know. But every time you do that, you're just feeding that fear of engulfment. You're confirming their belief that this relationship is just too much pressure. What they really need is to feel calm and in control, not overwhelmed by affection. Okay, so let's shift gears. What happens next? What goes on in their head when you finally stop? When you stop chasing, stop texting, and just create that silence? Well, this is where everything flips on its head. It's not instant, but there's a pretty clear process that happens in their mind. First, just poof. The pressure is gone. All that anxiety they felt from being pursued just vanishes. Then, the bad memories, the ones tied to that feeling of pressure, they start to fade. And what fills that space? Nostalgia. The good memories start to creep back in. And that's when they get to the final step. They actually start to question their own decision to leave. Yeah, it really does all come down to taking that pressure off the table. As soon as the source of their anxiety is gone, that feeling of being chased, their brain is finally free. It's free to remember all the things they genuinely liked about you and the relationship. They can finally see the good stuff again without that filter of fear coloring everything. And there's another really powerful psychological thing happening here too. It's called the scarcity effect. Basically, we all tend to place a higher value on things that are rare or unavailable. So when you were always there, always available, your presence was just a given. But the moment you step back, you become scarce. And automatically, your value in their mind goes up, and they start to think about what they might be losing. You know, when you accept the breakup with maturity and stop chasing, you're doing something huge. You are fundamentally changing the whole power dynamic. You go from being seen as, maybe clingy or dependent to someone who is independent and has self-respect. And that balance, that's way more attractive to them. Okay, so fast forward. You've given them space, and then it happens. Your phone buzzes, and it's them. Your heart probably does a little jump, right? But listen, this moment right here is the most critical part of this whole thing. You have to be able to figure out if this is just a flicker of curiosity or if it's real, genuine commitment. Now, don't expect some big romantic speech. That's not how it's going to go down. Remember, they're afraid of rejection too. So their first message is almost always going to be super low risk. A simple, hey, or saw this and thought of you. They're just dipping a toe in the water, testing to see if the coast is clear without putting themselves out there too much. And if you remember one thing, let it be this. Curiosity is not commitment. Say it with me. Curiosity is not commitment. That first text, yeah, it's a good sign that giving them space worked. But it's usually just driven by nostalgia, maybe a little boredom. It is not a guarantee that they've changed or that they're ready to commit. This table is basically your cheat sheet. Use it. Are they just sending you random, hey, what's up texts and talking about the good old days? That's curiosity, my friend. But are they willing to have those tough conversations, to actually talk about the future, to admit where they messed up? That's what commitment starts to look like.
All right, let's zoom out for a second and talk about the real end game here. Because honestly, the true goal of this whole journey, it isn't actually about getting them back. It's about getting you back. It's about your own path forward to your own emotional independence.
And this is a huge mental shift. If you're only stopping the chase to get a reaction out of them, you're still playing their game. You're still hooked on their validation. The real power, the game changer, is when you stop chasing for you, to heal, to build an awesome life for yourself, to find your own happiness, whether they're in the picture or not. Because look, the goal in any healthy relationship isn't to be totally dependent on someone, but it's also not to be completely independent, like two ships passing in the night. The sweet spot is interdependence. That's where two whole, complete people choose to be a team. You have your own lives, your own autonomy, but you build something together. It's that perfect balance of connection and freedom. And that right there, that's where your true power lies. It's knowing your own worth. It's being crystal clear about what you need in a partner. And it's having the strength and the confidence to say, you know what, this isn't meeting my needs, and being willing to walk away if they can't or won't step up. So when you boil it all down, understanding all this psychology, it's not about manipulating someone to come back to you. It's about empowering yourself. It gives you the clarity to understand what's going on, and more importantly, to decide on your own path forward. So the big question isn't, will they come back anymore? The real question is, now that you know all this, what are you going to choose for yourself?